long term, if we zoom out, we're thinking, well, we're not looking to win over the next 1, 2 years. We're looking to win over the next decade. And then it becomes much clearer and much easier because when those studios start to figure out what their core game is, or once they've built their first game and they see that they need to iterate or it needs to be killed like we did, we've already found that fun. We've already found the winning formula and we're going to scale and pour fuel onto that fire. And so we spent the last 3 years learning and really iterating and creating these fast feedback loops where the team, the game, and everyone surrounded by the studio is just creating a much thorough understanding of the space. And that isn't following a meta. We have to create the meta. I truly believe you can't predict where this space will be in even the next 3 months' time. So trying to predict it over a game's life cycle of development, particularly games that aren't hyper casual, games that we're building, or even double or triple A games for PC and console, they're 3, 4, 5 year dev cycles. There's absolutely no way that you can say, okay, I believe blockchain will be here in 3 years' time. You have to create something and have the conviction that you will create that trend. And that's, our focus and how we've been building not only the studio and the vision, but also Fableborne on our games going forward.
This is the 100X podcast. We're back with another episode of 100X Gaming. You listened recently to Meiji, Sinjin. After that episode with Meiji, we asked Sinjin if you could recommend one single game that we've got to sit down with. What is it? The name he gave us was Fableborne. You guys are building on Avax, and we're getting excited about Avax Gaming. We love Shrapnel. We love Sinjin. And so anyone building the Avax world is kind of garnering our attention already. Really excited to learn about what you guys are building. Thank you, Cam and Maria, for joining us. Do you want to introduce Fableborne, your vision, what you guys are building, and why people should be excited to play it? Before we dig into everything this episode has to offer, we want to highlight the awesome partners who sponsor this podcast and make it possible for us to work full-time on 100X. They're legends, and we appreciate them for supporting us. In 2038, an asteroid collided with the moon. Now, years later, meteorites rain down upon the Earth like manna from heaven. You are an MEF operator with one goal in mind: collect the mysterious substance, compound Sigma, in the best gear you can find. Eliminate everyone in your path. It's the ultimate high-stakes treasure hunt, if you can extract alive. Built by leadership behind COD, Halo, BioShock, Ghost of Tsushima, and more, Shrapnel is the first moddable extraction shooter on the blockchain. Save Shrapnel on your epic wish list, get an extraction pack, or sign up now as early access is right around the corner. Find all the links in the description. Astrobit is the king of automated trading, and now they've introduced a freemium model. Put those trading fees to use. How does it work? Sign up to an exchange with one of Astrobit's affiliate links and receive at least 30 free credits as a loyalty bonus. Then earn credits on your trading fees. The more you trade, the more credits you can generate. Use those credits towards trading bots and strategies. In other words, you can create a passive income stream at no cost. Find more deets in the description below. Your data is one of the most important things about you, yet you don't control it. Giant corporations do, but you can change that with Storage Chain. Imagine Dropbox, iCloud, or whatever else you use, but it's completely decentralized, encrypted, and built on chain. That means you own everything, and it's not stored on some giant server prone to hacks. Safer, cheaper, better. Even cooler, anyone can contribute storage to the network and earn passive income through their blockchain. As tech advances, the cloud too must evolve. Be a pioneer in the new era of decentralized storage. Visit storagechain.io and receive 150 gigs of free storage to start participating in the Web3 revolution today.
Yeah, so maybe I can start, why is the studio here? What are we trying to build as a studio? Maria, maybe you want to jump in on what we're building with Fableborne. So as a studio, Pixion, in a sentence, the vision for us as a company is creating these genre-defining games played and enjoyed by millions of players. But what does that really mean? What are we actually trying to do? So we're not just making games, we're creating new experiences, and we touched on it, before the podcast, blending these two genres together and offering players something that they've never played before. As a studio, our goal is to build these games that, become part of players' lives and millions of players' lives. So that means we are mobile first. It means that our games are not just these fresh new experiences and new takes on genres, but actually they're also really accessible too.
And just really quick, for anyone listening who may not know the relationship between Pixion and Fableborne, Pixion is the studio behind Fableborne, and Fableborne is just one of the games that you guys hope to release in the future, correct?
Yeah, that's right.
Rad. Awesome. Well, I want to just get into like right out the gate. I think being a crypto podcast, we're always quick to talk about like the tech and the cool things you're doing. But when it comes to gaming, I mean, the question that I have been asking myself way more often is just, is this fun? Like, is this going to be fun to play? Because there were too many games. I think like 2021, 2022, that like if you stripped away the fact that it was in Web3, it just wasn't fun. So I would love to get into why what you guys are building is like just genuinely fun. What is unique about the gameplay? You mentioned blending two genres. What does that look like?
I can jump in with this one. And before I answer, I want to say like love to Sinjin, to Meiji. Really appreciate you referencing us and us being here in this discussion with you all. So I actually have might be a bit of a controversial opinion about fun games.
Okay.
Because you can make a fun game. Let's say you're making a 1 hour experience, a 2 hour experience, and that's what you're putting out in the market, maybe to do like a pre-mint or something. And being able to get a 2 hour fun is very different from like building a fun game that will have a player retained and engaged year upon year. You have live ops, you have replayability. They're going to be spending tens of hours a week playing that game. And so I truly think that we're starting to be in that space in blockchain gaming where you have studios that are going beyond that 2 hour experience and they're going to ship games. And that's where we're going to see a lot of innovation happening. We're going to see like games going through iteration cycles because what you design in that 2 hour experience, now you realize it doesn't have the replayability or like the depth. And so, yeah, we're going to see that iteration over 2024, I believe. And so the way that we design that fun experience is, well, we apply coming from mobile Web 2 free-to-play game experience. We're applying the development stages that is applied in non-blockchain gaming. So the validation cycles. And so first starting with that concept validation of, is it just pure fun? Do you want to come back to it? Like, does it give you just happiness playing it and like challenge and some mastery? And so you start from there. And then when you find that and you have your product market fit thesis, because there's a lot about market analysis. That's why we chose the two genres that we're blending. Like there are clear needs and an audience that can be targeted, especially with the innovation that we plan to create with blockchain gaming. And so it's thinking about all of those ingredients. And then once you have that initial validation, it's taking it to like day 1 retention testing, day 3 retention testing, soft launching and scaling marketing, because that's why I'm really excited about Fableborne. And like we're building for that long-term perspective. Like we want to make the first mobile free-to-play blockchain game that's going to be in the market for like years. And we're going to have live ops. We're going to have the economy, like the blockchain design space will come from the core of the game and not just like plastered on. And so that has to be designed from the start with like the complexity of the resources and the economy and the monetization. I could go into more detail, but I'll stop there.
That's really interesting. When you guys, and I saw this on your website too, that you guys are a mobile first experience. What made you guys choose a mobile first experience? Is it really just that there's a lot more market? I mean, everybody has a mobile phone and a lot of people are doing mobile gaming nowadays. What kind of challenges does going mobile first bring to the table that maybe you wouldn't encounter when you go PC first? I know there's a very big debate of like, should you go PC first or mobile first? What made you guys choose the mobile route?
I have no doubt, but I just went through a long answer. You go, Cam. I know we have the same thoughts on this.
Yeah, I want to reference back to, our belief that mobile introduced billions of new players. And a reference I always talk internally of a studio as well is, my own mother spends more time gaming than I do now. She is always bombarding me with Candy Crush or Merge Mansion. She's on like level 2000 plus. It's insane. And 15 years ago, you would look at my mum and say, she's not a gamer. There's still a diehard trad gaming niche that still look at my mum and say, you're not a gamer. But actually, the reality is she spends a lot of time gaming. She spends a lot of time in gaming, and she actually monetizes really well as a user. But her desires, her motivations, what incentivizes her to retain and engage are completely different, I'm sure, to all of us. And that's, what makes gaming an incredible industry, is that fun is subjective. Everything that we enjoy and what we would play, it's completely unique. And how do we reach the most amount of players? Well, mobile is the platform. We truly believe that mobile plus blockchain is going to grow that audience from where we are now to just over 3 billion to close to 4 billion plus. And that's why, for us, it was very clear as a studio, mobile is certainly the obvious choice and the obvious platform.
That's really interesting because when you think about what you just said about sort of the mobile gamer being a little bit different than the PC gamer. Like I would consider myself more of a PC gamer. I'm more like first person shooters, third person shooters type games. I wouldn't really consider myself so much of a mobile gamer. When you think about the difference between somebody who would play mostly mobile games to someone who is just on their PC playing mobile games at the competitive level, how do you go ahead and find a middle common ground where you can really target that audience, but also people who want to enjoy the game and are on the PC? Are you guys trying to sort of also appease to the PC gamers as well in sort of your game design, or is it really just more like, hey, let's go with mobile first, and then maybe later on in some of your other games, then you start looking at a PC experience first for those kind of gamers?
Yeah, so there's two tracks of thoughts there. Maria, maybe you have more to add, but from my perspective is, I was a PC gamer. I played COD Battlefield 3-4 hours every single evening. Then life changed. I became time poor. Also, I now suck at Battlefield and COD. Like my dexterity is just
Yeah,
not there
they
as it
call
used
that
to be.
age-based matchmaking. I've
Exactly,
been
yeah.
hearing that with COD. I
I've
think I'm in
dropped
the
well
upper
over that
bracket of
hill.
age-based now.
And so naturally, I still want that thrill and I still want to compete, but it has to be first in these really short snackable sessions because I don't have hours free, uninterrupted. And two, I just don't, like I say, have that dexterity where dexterity-based skill games is what I can compete and enjoy and have fun. And so that's where mobile makes sense first for us. And then secondly, we see those players not only maturing onto mobile as they grow older. So, I'm sure if we speak in 10 years' time, you'll be playing mobile games and not PC or console games. Secondly, mobile is used as that secondary gaming device. And so even though I still play a lot of now RTS and strategy games on my PC, I know Maria does the same and a lot of people in the studio do too. We still play a lot of mobile games as well. And maybe that's, when we're on the tube or a train or when we're not on our laptops or PCs, but we still want to game. We're still gamers, we're still players. And when we have that time free, but we're not at our desks, I think everyone is able to pick up a mobile and play games. And there's so much variety, so many different genres and experiences. I see mobile as not cannibalizing PC and console players, but it being an addition, secondary devices for those players as well.
Rad. Yeah, that makes sense. You used a phrase there that I saw in somewhere on your website or docs or something that I thought was really intriguing. You said like lunchtime or snack based gaming. Like, hey, maybe I'm just, you said you got kids. I got 3 kids. My time for gaming, having 3 kids under the age of 5, as soon as my third is born, pretty quickly here, goes down a lot, right? I don't have the evenings to play hours and hours and hours every night like I used to. So it changes. I saw lunchtime esports, and I'm like pretty competitive when it comes to gaming. If I get into a game, like I'm immediately the friend that my friends don't want to play with anymore because I'm like trying to get in the highest lobbies possible. And I saw that you guys are like applying that philosophy of hey, let's tap into gamers who don't have all of the time in the world, to the way that you're actually like working out the competitive side of the game? I would love to learn about that.
Sure. So you mentioned, a key term there, short snackable sessions, and really we're trying to build games for those time poor players, and that defines, different age limits as well. It's not just your 35 plus player like myself, right? We're all time poor now. We all have these distractions. We measure our time buckets in minutes rather than hours these days. And so we still want to create that experience where, the thrill of competing for something and the potential to play for something that potentially has value elevates that player experience and puts them into this high stakes, high reward environment. But the challenge that's always existed is that generally it's been really exclusive to that elite player. That player that either is naturally just super talented, or two, has just more time that they can commit to getting better at this particular game. And the goal of Pixion League, the tournament platform that we're building, is to make that much more accessible. And so those players that want to jump in, feel like a champion, and jump back out, we make that accessible for, everyone, and not just the top 0.1% of players.
That's rad. I'm thinking about, like, again, my brain's on gameplay. I'm on Maria's comments about like fun. And I'm thinking, for me, a lot of fun is competitive. But I recognize that, like, the games that I want to be competitive in, like, I used to play a lot of Warzone. I don't anymore. It's like 40 minutes for a single match. That is not easy for my current life space. Valorant's the same thing. It's like 35 minutes for a single game. What is like the gameplay loop time period look like for you guys when you're saying like snackable sessions? What does that even practically look like?
I always measure it in real life. That's what I do. I'm the weird person where every time I have a break in my day, I'm like testing a game and seeing how much I can fit in, because that's what we're trying to do. Is you're in a queue in the supermarket. Can you have two hands free to play the game? Can you have a single hand free? Like, what's the experience your body's going through? What's the availability you have at that moment? If you're sitting down at a restaurant and you just made a food order, how long do you have? Like, you probably have two hands then to play the game. How long do you have until your food arrives and then you have to, get eating before it gets cold? And as you go through all of these daily life observations and like analyzing the freedom of like not only your attention span, like your body, what you can do with it, you start to understand, like, that's how we are forecasting the ideal session time. And then we do validation whether we can deliver like that action packed feeling that we want to deliver of a raid within that time session. And so that's how we approach it.
That's fascinating. I don't know that I've ever talked to someone that like the motive behind the scenes was like moment-based gameplay and making gaming fun. Like, can that moment that we just said, like action-packed, adrenaline, exciting moment that I can experience in 30 seconds. Normally feels like I gotta play for 20 minutes to get to that point.
Yeah, like I'll go back to the market thing that I wanted to say, because that's why the blend of the genres that we're doing, like it has product market fit, because it allows the strategy and the action-packed rating, but also it allows us to capitalize on those breaks of someone's day-to-day where they can be fully involved, two hands, completely immersed in a very intense ARPG raid, but then maybe you only have one hand free, you got 5 minutes, maybe you're watching something on the TV, and you can take that lean back experience of doing the base building. And so as we're thinking all about, like, the mobile games should be designed and planned around how can I best fit within players' lives, rather than how do I get the player to adapt their lives to play our game.
Yeah, that's awesome. I mean, we mentioned Meiji earlier and Sinjin, and I think that was part of what was fascinating to me, was just his idea of like, can we think about the way that we're producing games in a different way? Like, and maybe this is why he recommended you guys is it almost feels like we're tapping into that when we get into Web3 gaming, I think there's this expectation that everything has to be, there's two camps. Everything's got to be drastically different than Web 2, or the only difference at all is we just threw a token on something that existed in Web 2. But
Yeah.
I love that people like you guys are essentially taking a look at what gaming is right now and saying, is there a better way to do this? Like, can we tweak this? We're already evolving, like the economics of gaming. Can we evolve some other pieces in there as well? What were you guys,
Yeah.
like, what even got you to asking those questions? I'm just intrigued by the way that you're looking at gaming as a whole.
So in terms of mobile, this is how I think about the market. And that's why, to me, like, I'm here to pursue the mobile market for these reasons. Because if we look at, I think in like we reach 8 billion now population, world population, 50% of the population has smartphones. Just under that half of population, people are already playing games. And like a third of that was added purely by like mobile gaming into that market. And then we're looking at the aging up. What Ken was explaining, that you lose time, like you're aging up, you're going to start playing more mobile games. The games that are built to fit your life and not you having to fit your life around them. And then we're also looking at, for example, the new markets that are growing fast, the non-saturated markets. Those are primarily mobile markets, like very digital population. We're looking at India, Southeast Asia, like Indonesia. We're looking at South Africa, Nigeria. And so these are the markets that are going to push that player base further, and they're going to be mobile first. And we're looking at like console and PC gaming. You have an even stronger IP and brand awareness, loyalty than in mobile. Because like mobile, you're used to installing all these games and like you try them. Your brand loyalty is less loyal. And so you're more willing to try these new experiences. Whilst if you're trying to compete as a new gaming startup against PC and console, like you're going to face a much harsher marketing like competition, because you're not only having to match, the spend that they're doing on marketing, like you're spending more because you're fighting against their already like their flywheel of the IPs and the brand, not only of the gaming IP, but like the studio itself. And even Xbox and PlayStation are struggling to grow their player base. And that's why we're seeing PlayStation publishing like the games on Steam. And we're seeing Xbox trying to build
Game
a
Pass
mobile app
everything,
store.
yeah. And they're going, it's Game
And
Pass,
so,
and then it's the cloud streaming. They're trying to put all their games on your phone.
yeah. And then you look at the newer generations, the generations that are further going to build into that population of gamers. They're growing up with TikTok. And if you're going to put them in a 40-minute match, and it's going to take 40 minutes until you get that feeling of reward, of stimulation, then like in terms of the younger generations, PC and console games aren't really being designed for the, how do I call it? Like the
Zoomers.
Yeah, like you need that constant reward. Like the social feeds, they're constantly rewarding you with these micro celebrations. And like mobile gaming, that's exactly what it's built for. Is
Right.
Every minute, every 3 minutes, every 5 minutes. It's like micro celebrations, major celebrations. They're all designed around come in for 5 minutes, we're going to make you feel good. Leave and come back for another 5 minutes, we're going to make you feel good again. And so for me, everything points at mobile gaming like driving a massive growth in the market. And so, Cam, why are we doing mobile blockchain gaming?
Maria's leading the podcast already.
We're good with it. Guest host Maria.
Yeah, so why blockchain for Pixion? So firstly, for any tech, blockchain or not, we always ask ourselves two main questions. Can this tech help us create exponentially better gaming experiences? Or two, can it allow us to create completely new experiences we've yet to explore? And when we think of blockchain or when we think of mobile gaming, you look at the top 100 charts, for example, are stagnating. There's no new incumbents. I think there was maybe 5 or 6, really just a handful of new entries into that space. So innovation is stagnating. The huge game teams can't afford to take big risks because they've got proven formulas that generate millions. And so the same experiences are being regurgitated year on year on year. And now, as Maria touched on, scaling against those huge teams with huge war chests, how do you win as a new incumbent, as a new startup? How do you penetrate this top 100 chart? And our bet was that we will be able to create these new experiences, and blockchain is this new design space that's unexplored. And this will allow us to also create experiences that we've yet to even dream of. Just as mobile did 15 years ago, the way as designers we create games on mobile very differently to the ones we did on PC and console. How players consume that content is also very different to how PC and console consume gaming content on those platforms. And so we see that trend just occurring and that paradigm shift occurring with blockchain. And so those are two of the very key points for us, is that's what's really exciting for us. And, Fableborne is continuously iterating on those 2 points to try and find that new playbook.
I totally agree when you mentioned the whole idea of these top games, the top 100 games, not being able to take risks. I mean, COD has now resorted to just doing renewals or remakes of their old games. They're not even popping out new games anymore. They said, all right, we can just remake them and make them look prettier, and that's what we'll sell for the next 10 years. So yeah, I mean, I totally see that, especially in the PC gaming, it's very stagnant. I haven't seen a game or a new game that I'm like, dude, this is going to be an amazing experience. This is going to be able to take over what Fortnite is doing. It seems like Fortnite has been sort of taking the reins of PC gaming for the last 5-6 years. Warzone has been trying to keep up, and then Apex is like trying to fight for the third place with a bunch of other little games. When you look at the blockchain gaming, though, I see that a lot of PC games are struggling with certain aspects, like getting into the Epic Game stores. Thankfully, they're starting to have a little bit more leeway, but Steam is still trying to give them some issues and things like that. When you look at mobile gaming and the blockchain, I feel like there's even more mountains to climb, because places like the App Store, like the Apple App Store, they're putting a lot of restrictions on mobile gaming. A lot of the games that have been able to make it on there had to take away the sort of the blockchain aspects of it and only allow those aspects to exist on web applications. What kind of challenges have you guys run into when trying to make these mobile experiences have these blockchain aspects in things like the Google App Store or the Apple App Store?
Yeah, I'm not scared about the regulations. I've read through them all and planned how we can work within them. First, like, they're reasonable to a certain extent, and so I'm not entirely surprised by the restrictions that are there. And they do give us that space to work within. And as I was going through it, I think in a way it might benefit players in a second way, which is it somewhat forces mobile blockchain games to create an abstraction layer. And this is how, like, we're approaching designing the blockchain games from the core. And just like we design layers of complexity within the core gameplay, where we think about, okay, what's the first minute within the game? What are the first 5 minutes, the first half an hour, the second session, the first week, the first month, the first year, and designing the unveiling of that complexity over time. And then in terms of designing the UI and the UX, the unveiling happens somewhat frictionlessly if you want it to be accessible, but you can also never go and look at it. And so that's also how we're approaching, like, the design of the blockchain elements of the game. It's that layering of the complexity, the introduction, the steps that you have to take to go and see, under the carpet if you choose to engage with it. And yeah, I'm not really concerned about it, to be honest, because as mobile gaming companies have had to find how to get the best out of the constraints. That's how I call them, like constraints of the mobile app store regulations. And we found major success for the last decade. And it's not going to be these restrictions that are going to really stop mobile blockchain gamings from achieving that success. And so I don't worry too much about it. Like, we have a plan of how to comply within it. I actually think is very reasonable, the experience that we can create. And so, yeah, looking forward to soft launching and showcasing how we're going to do it. But there's, like, more and more mobile games out there that are showcasing how to do it. And so there's good examples out there.
Do you guys, I mean, just on that point, when we're talking about, like, the way that you're involving blockchain, I mean, what we've seen most of the time, and this isn't every case, but I would say like 75% of games are introducing either a token to disrupt their like economic cycle, or they're introducing NFTs to change the way that you earn rewards. And I don't think it's been an issue with Google. Like the Google Play Store is a lot more friendly about, as long as you're not just like straight up buying tokens through the app.
And doing loot boxes. Yeah.
Yes. But then with like Apple, I mean, they've taken a pretty hard stance on like anything crypto because of like gas fees. I remember there's that thing that came out like 6 months ago that they kicked off a bunch of games that were Web3 based because they like wanted their share of gas fees and didn't understand the way that gas fees worked with like just getting NFTs. How do you guys like practically avoid that? Like our NFTs or whatever you guys are going to be using, is that involved on the App Store, or would I like play the game through the App Store and then interact with that stuff on the back end?
It's a technical problem. And as a very good friend of mine who's a tech director told me in my younger career, technical problems always have solutions. They might just take time to develop. And so, like I said, like we're seeing examples of how other studios are approaching the problem, including on the App Store, where you can create that abstraction layer. And so it is a problem that can be solved through the design of the game and the technical implementation. And then there's something else that's supporting the growth of blockchain games, which is with the App Store fees, we're seeing more and more non-blockchain games teaching players that there is higher discounts if you go to the web to go and buy the currency, whatever.
I mean, that's literally what Fortnite does, and they're not even Web3.
And so, no, we're not having to do that legwork ourselves within blockchain gaming. We have the whole mobile industry creating this teaching pattern with players, and we're going to see, like now that it's basically been confirmed that even with the ability, like the store is being forced where you have to allow other payment solutions. Even when you go through them in app, they're going to take like a 27% fee rather than a 30% fee. So that's not going to stop the studios from creating those web experiences to completely cut out the mobile stores. And they're teaching, like over the next year, 2 years, 3 years, they're teaching these players and this new generation of players how to get the most value out of their purchases. And so we're all in this together, where we will have to do that to a certain extent to enable the full blockchain experience of the game because of the restrictions that we have in the platform regulations. But we're not doing it alone. We have the whole industry supporting us in this.
Yeah, that makes sense. And it's not even like the whole Web3 gaming industry. Literally, it's the mobile gaming industry is all reacting to the same problem. So it's not like you guys are fighting that yourself.
Yeah, it's like we have it's different core problems, but they have the same solution, which really helps us.
Yeah, exactly. Train people that the App Store is not the answer. You all do that. You're just training them on different pieces of the puzzle.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Caesar.
Yeah, I had a question here. In the founding of Pixion, what sort of values do you guys feel that you guys bring to the table that make you guys stand out from the competition in the landscape? I know we're starting to see a couple of names pop up, not only in the Web3 space, but also in the Web2 space, that may lead the drive to the next sort of innovation in mobile gaming. Why do you guys feel like Pixion might be one of those key players in that conversation?
Yeah, really great question, and one that, very early on in the studio's life cycle, kept me up at night. But our studio mission, is centered around answering this question, why do we exist? Why play our games? What can we offer players that other studios cannot? Every studio has to be able to answer these fundamental questions. Otherwise, they just don't succeed or scale. They certainly don't last, several years then. And so I mentioned earlier, our focus on creating these familiar but fresh experiences that excite players. And that's one that we're committed to. And to share an example, even before, Maria joined, before Fableborne, we built and killed 5 prototypes. And some of those prototypes were 8 weeks, some of them were over 8 months. And if they don't hit the mark, and if the market or the team concluded, okay, this isn't the one that's going to scale and be this category defining genre hit, we just kill the game. And as a startup, that's really hard to do because you don't have endless amounts of runway. But we set ourselves up, we set our development process up to be able to find and break into that market that I mentioned earlier. But we've also got some incredible investors that back the process. So whether it's game 1, game 2, game 5, the one that we launch, we know is going to be that genre-defining hit because all the way up to launch, we've been consistently getting validation that is telling us there's huge demand, there's an addressable audience that is really excited about the game, about the experience, and it's one that we can scale exponentially in multiple markets. So that's a vision, that's a focus, is creating these familiar but fresh experiences. We're not looking at genres and adding 10% on top. We're looking at genres that are stagnating and saying, well, how do we create completely new experiences? So these are games and that moment-to-moment magic that you've not experienced before in any other game.
I wanted to add, like, additional to
Yeah.
this, another reason why I think we're going to be part of, like, leading the blockchain gaming industry is that we're doing this process to build a game that will sustain live ops, where we'll have a game that for years to come will be with a thriving community, growing year on year. That's why we do all of this legwork, is to ensure that we have those KPIs and we have that depth to build the live ops game. And that's because we come from that proven experience of doing that in Web2 gaming. And so that's why I'm really excited. Like, some of my dreams of how to implement, like, in the new design space that blockchain opens up, it's in competitive play, but also the new ways to design live ops for a game. And yeah, that's what Fableborne will be. It'll be designed to have a thriving live ops scene.
That's amazing, because when you really look at it, and it's unfortunate that this is the truth, most games out there, especially in Web3, are just rip off of other games that have been around forever. It's like, hey, this is the Fortnite, but on Web3. Hey, this is Warzone, but on Web3. And that's sort of like the Web3 is like what's supposed to sell and make this game really pop off. I don't think that's really going to work down the road. I think in the very beginning, that was a very good selling point, but now we're starting to see, like, hey, just because it's on Web3, you're not going to be able to compete with Warzone. You're not going to be able to compete with Fortnite. You have to have these new experiences like what you guys are trying to create. And it's really amazing to me that Fableborne is sort of the result of 5 other iterations that maybe were not the best, or you guys felt like weren't going to really hit the mark. What makes you guys feel like Fableborne might be the one? Why is Fableborne going to be the one that after those 5 iterations, this one's really going to shock the world?
Yeah, so but I just want to touch on what you said before I answer that question as well, is, studios, I spoke to a lot of founders in 2021, they were raising, I call them pitch deck rounds, where literally it was a founder and a pitch deck and an idea, no execution and no MVP or vertical slice, but they were selling NFTs or they were raising token rounds in the millions.
Caesar bought into a bunch of those. He's still salty.
Yeah, I mean, fair play, fair play. It was easy to get sucked in, but they were receiving conflicting, validation, because on one hand you had investors saying, "Wow, I really believe in what you're building. Here's $10 million at a, insane, overinflated 80, 90, $100 million valuation." And then they thought, well, okay, surely if I build Clash of Clans with NFTs, or surely if I build COD with NFTs, that 100 million DAU or MAU, that'll come to me, because obviously I think they would, and this investor that's giving me $10 million thinks they will. And so, of course, it will. And then we saw this huge wave of unfortunately founders that hadn't built games before, that maybe were a little naive, were making the same mistakes, Marie and I did, but 10 years ago. And I think, like you mentioned at the start of this podcast, now it's the really, really experienced teams that are coming into this space that have already battle tested their ideas, battle tested their processes, but also work together in the trenches to build success stories. And now they're coming to blockchain with those lessons. And in any new playbook or in any new space, I always say to a team, our experience, even though it's incredible, what Maria's achieved, Tamara, Sam, the leadership team here is, littered with success, but I always still say our experience matters less. And that's because our experience, when there's no playbook, we can't choose to follow something and maybe add a sprinkle of innovation. We're writing that playbook day by day on the fly. And so our experience doesn't tell us what to do, it tells us what not to do. And that still is really invaluable because we saw founders for 2 years in 2021 and 2022 making the same mistakes, that we had to go through but early on in our careers. So I think that's going to change the industry and change the quality of games, and we're seeing that already. To answer your question, why Fableborne? Why do we have a conviction of the current title? Sixth time. How do we get this one right? So we follow the same process. We continuously build first a prototype that internally we have to have the conviction, before we even validate it externally as creatives in this space that have built successful games. Do we play it and say, okay, this is where we think it can position itself, this is where we think it can succeed, and this is how we think it can succeed? If we don't have that conviction early on, regardless of what others say, we kill it there and then, because the team has to be really inspired and excited about what we're building, because game dev is tough and we have to be able to come out of those tough challenges and have the inspiration to be able to traverse through them. And then from there, we have a validation step of, if we're excited and we believe in the game, we build a vertical slice. Again, it's still quick, cheap. We're not looking at scalability at this point. It's still.
And what's a vertical slice for anyone who is just a gamer and doesn't know what that is?
Maria's probably the right one here. Maria, what's a vertical slice?
It's when it allows the player to experience like a full loop of the game, and it has enough depth and replayability where you can spend around an hour and still feel like each time you're doing the core loop, there's something new to discover. It might have like very, very basic progression so that you can feel a slight power increase to get that power curve, because it does make it more fun. Yeah, very lean.
If you're
Yeah, so
listening
it's just-
and you've been watching, just a frame of reference for our audience, if you've been watching 100x Gaming, I think the first episode we did, I don't know if you guys know Tolan Worlds. They're a pretty cool game. And I found that game simply because I was at a crypto conference and some dude who happened to be the CEO of Tolan Worlds, we were like just talking in the corner of a room because it was too loud for either of us. And he was like, bro, you want to try this game I'm building? And I had no idea that he was building like a legit game that's like, they've got a following, they're doing good things. I just thought he was some guy at a conference next to me. When he whipped out his laptop and I played his vertical slice, and I was like, what the heck? This is so much fun. And that was like the kickoff that actually, you can go back and watch that if you're listening, but that was the kickoff that kind of started our journey into talking to gaming studios and saying, oh, I think we're like at a place that is ready to have these conversations in Web3 gaming, was because somebody introduced me to their vertical slice. So they work.
They do, yeah. And but the goal for us is, as a startup, is, are we spending our time on the thing that would provide the most value? No one wants to spend all our runway building a game that when we release, it drops dead and we're out of business. And so the goal for us is consistently giving ourselves these validation checks, and consistently validating the market. Is this still the right product for us? Is this still the one that can scale, that will meet our goals and meet our vision? And so the vertical slice, as Maria said, is a really lean experience, just the core loop. And the goal for us with these tests is to give us a health check really on, is this core loop fun? Can it scale? Is it retaining players days on days? And if it isn't, then again, we kill the game. And we've had to do that, like I say, a number of times now. And Fableborne passed those checks. And that just then continued to give us more and more conviction that we found that fun. And it's now about building, not only Pixion League, but live ops, more content, continuing to iterate and refine that core loop even further to make it more accessible. And again, that gives us a conviction that it's not only the team, but there's real numbers and validation in the market that's saying there's a market need and a desire for this type of experience.
And I want to riff off the excitement, like the uncharted waters, writing that playbook. And I believe that the talent that is currently developing games, because there is that known playbook, there are those incumbents, and they don't want to like take those risks because of course you're trying to maximize for your shareholders. It all makes sense why the decisions are what they are. And so you're just doing a bit of like cookie cutter games. That true innovation, like being an explorer, you know, you want that excitement of maybe we'll fail, but like maybe we'll find this treasure. And that's why I love, like, I found my passion again to build games joining Web3 gaming, because it's not cookie cutter, because you're not told, go look at this game, it's in the top charts, they do it that way, just break it down and go and do it again. And so there's like this, I truly believe that there is innovation to be uncovered and mastered and write that new playbook. And I believe that there's a lot of amazing talent out there that is looking to find that passion again. And you see them going into like solo devs and indie gaming, but there are also devs who want to be making, you know, the next $1 billion game, and not making the next $1 billion game copying like 90% of another game. They want to be explorers. It's like our human nature. And so, yeah, I think like that's something else I love about blockchain, the blockchain gaming market. Is that it's like the little house that us creatives like want to go to. And yeah, like you're navigating the waters. Maybe there's like rocks that you can't see, and you will have little accidents you have to like patch up and stuff as you're going to your goal. Yeah, I find that really exciting.
I love that answer. I really like that. I think that is part of the reason that I'm in Web3 at all. Like, I know I've mentioned to our audience in the past, like, hey, when I got here, I didn't really care about any of that. I saw an investment opportunity, and I was a retail investor first. That is not why I stayed years later. It is because this space is fascinating. Like, it feels like around every corner, under every rock that I lift up, there is somebody trying something new that's never been done before. And I don't really know where else you find that. It's like every little industry inside of Web3, people are trying new things. And a lot of them are failing, and that's unfortunate, but that's the effort of being an adventurer, right? Like, of being the explorer, of charting a new path. I think that's really cool. And that, I have another question just on this topic that we've been on, about like, hey, this is how we stand out. We go into a space that people are too afraid to go into. That we're willing to not follow the cookie cutter mold. That's why we break into Web3. B, we actually alter the way that the genre itself exists, and we're trying to create a new gameplay loop in a gameplay style that really no other game has at this point. That could be a big risk. It could be the reason that you guys become the next game, or the reason that you fail, and that's why it's like, man, it's exhilarating. And then on that point is what I was just thinking about. I mean, it's no secret to anybody that listens frequently, I was way too addicted to Fortnite for a long time. That was like my wife and I's main game for a hot minute. And that game to me was really interesting because they did something similar where they were building a game in a genre that like games existed. And then they thought, shoot, our game's not getting attention. Let's like build out this silly, goofy battle royale mode that nobody's done. And they took a risk that ended up turning them into like one of the most successful games of all time when it comes to profit and recognition. And then everyone is just copying them again. And now I think the reality is, hey, the way you become the next big game is not by copying Fortnite again, or by copying Warzone, or by copying Clash. It's by, again, tweaking with genres that people already like and they're starting to get bored of, and putting a new spin on it. And I think you were the one who said that, Cam, a couple minutes ago. And to me, that's fascinating because I think that was like the secret to success for Fortnite early on, was they recognized, hey, people like something about this genre, but they don't want the same exact thing. Let's put our spin on it. Not just like our spin, but like let's drastically tweak the way that it's done. There's a little bit of familiarity there, but that's it. Otherwise, it's new. And it worked. You guys are taking things that are sort of familiar and blending those genres. That piece that's sort of familiar would be something like Clash of Clans with PvP based building. And you mentioned that, Maria, early on with like, hey, I'm in a grocery store line. I got a quick minute. Let me build my base up. But then the piece that's unique is we've never seen any game that is in that genre have any kind of like real time action or RPG in it at all. How do you blend those like practically, just like playing? You guys are talking about, one of your answers, Cam, was that like, hey, part of the win here is that we found something that is genuinely fun, and we're really excited to release that out. How did you even get to the point of that? And then what does that look like practically as a player? You guys are playing that in studio. I'm curious what that gameplay loop looks like.
So I imagine it like I don't know if you studied chemistry. I studied
In high
chemistry.
school a long time ago.
Okay. So you make your little concoction. It has different parts, and then you mix it together and you see if it explodes or if it does the thing that you want it to do. And so when you're working on making a hybrid blend of genres, there's no playbook, there's no recipe. And so it's like a chemistry class. And initially, like you can start, we have ARPG, so imagine Diablo, Genshin Impact, and then we have the base building, imagine Clash of Clans. So you need to deeply understand not just one game's audience, but two. So like, why do people love these genres? Like, why do people love second to second action gameplay? Why do players love base building and then raiding each other with that real-time strategy of dropping your units? And then once you truly understand those motivations, the personas, who they are, what other games do they play, you also distill the elements of the game. And I'm not saying distill, you're not looking at the core loop, for example, exactly. You're understanding like what's behind the core loop and abstract that. And then you can start by doing like a 50-50 concoction in your chemistry kit. And so you're taking like exactly ARPG and you're taking exactly, let's say, Clash of Clans, and you're putting it together. And then you do that testing. But all of this is being done with like hypotheses, and then you're trying to move and like just break things as fast as you can. So like a process that we applied internally was like weekly prototyping, where every single week we had goals, we had hypotheses, we had a high level design, we came together, and then we discussed how do we have a playtest on Friday, where we come together and we're like analyzing those goals, taking learnings, and then quickly designing the next hypotheses and the next GADs to do that again, like week on week. And you're refining those two experiences, because when you're looking at each of the genres individually, they have their challenges and there's design solutions for those challenges that are already known, the cookie cutter that we're talking about. But then when you put them together, there's unknown challenges that you're going to encounter in this prototyping. And maybe it's not like 50-50, maybe it's like 40-60, 70-30.
Now you get to solve. But it's good that you created a new problem because you did something that nobody else ever did before.
Exactly. And so it's moving fast and finding what works, what doesn't work, what new problems you find, how do you solve them, can you solve them, do you need to take a wider shift? And so that's how we approach it. I can't say that's how everyone approached it, but it has worked for us. And yeah, we found a solution where it is like a smooth blend and not two sides of the coin just like patched together.
I dig it. I really like, I was going to say, and then Caesar, I just saw you unmute, you can ask your question. I was just going to say, I like the idea of the genres that you built together. I think all I knew going into this conversation was looking at a white paper. And so now we get to pick your brain and see what you're building and what's actually happening. And I can say like wholeheartedly, yeah, this is something that I want to, like, I'm going to sit down and play this. I think that you've dialed in a couple of things well. You mentioned like, okay, we got Clash of Clans, we got Diablo, make them have a baby, but make it pretty, shout out to whoever is your artist. I love the design style. I think it's lighthearted enough that you tap into, again, that like mobile centric audience, but it's genuinely like just really, it looks good. you've got good looking gameplay. The characters look cool. It looks enticing. I think you guys are onto something. It's fun. Go ahead, Caesar.
Yeah, I was just going to add to the questions that we just asked. When you're thinking about sort of embarking into the unknown, you guys are not only doing that in sort of the gaming aspect of it, of trying something brand new, but one of the things that you guys probably have seen in the last couple of years is that Web3 just moves at a rapid, super fast pace. What was meta back in 2021 is like the words that you want to avoid now. Like back then, everyone was using metaverse and everyone was using NFTs. Now everybody's using digital collectibles or using brand new experiences. They're trying to avoid a couple words. With that in mind, as you guys embark to this new sort of gameplay and adding the blockchain elements to it, what aspect of your game is actually part of the blockchain? Is all your characters NFTs? Are they digital collectibles? Are you guys having tokens into the economy? What does that look like? And how are you guys sort of implementing that in a way that's like, hey, maybe what we had in our mind 2 years ago is not what's going to work now, because now we see like 10 other games tried it and it didn't actually work out. How have you guys had to evolve sort of the blockchain aspects into your game as you guys try to build out something brand new?
part of you said, blockchain is changing all the time. This week it's play to airdrop, next month it might be something else. So I think if you're always chasing the meta, you're always going to be behind, right? And as a founder as well, I mentioned, I spoke to lots of founders in 2021 that were raising more money than we do, and we did, even though we had a team, we were further along, we were more experienced, just because we weren't launching tokens or we didn't press a button on launching a Genesis NFT collection. And I'd say
And you didn't
anyone in the
promise something
blockchain,
impossible.
yeah, exactly. I'd say any founder in the blockchain space, they have to be ruthless with their priorities, because even now, just in the last 2 months as we've entered this mini bull, the amount of DMs, opportunities, collabs, investors, it's just incredible how many conversations that are being pushed forward towards us. And you have to say no. In this space, you have to say no, because otherwise we could spend the next 3 months going back and forth between all these different opportunities and conversations and collabs and new events and tournaments that we actually don't move forward with Fableborne. And that's one thing that we did really well, which I think now puts us out further in front, is that when there were lots of games and studios that were, raising these token rounds and raising these NFTs, or selling and minting these NFTs, we were just building and killing games, and it was tough at the time because everyone else was raising tens of millions of dollars and we were spending it. But long term, if we zoom out, we were thinking, well, we're not looking to win over the next 1, 2 years. We're looking to win over the next decade. And then it becomes much clearer, much easier, because when those studios start to figure out what their core game is, or once they've built their first game and they see that they need to iterate or it needs to be killed like we did, we've already found that fun. We've already found the winning formula, and we're going to scale and pour fuel onto that fire. And so we spent the last 3 years learning, and really iterating and creating these fast feedback loops where the team, the game, and everyone surrounded by the studio is just creating a much thorough understanding of the space. And that isn't following a meta. We have to create the meta. I truly believe you can't predict where this space will be in even the next 3 months' time. So trying to predict it over a game's life cycle of development, particularly games that aren't hyper casual, games that we're building, or even double or triple A games for PC and console, they're 3, 4, 5 year dev cycles. There's absolutely no way that you can say, okay, I believe blockchain will be here in 3 years' time. You have to create something and have the conviction that you will create that trend. And that's, our focus and how we've been building not only the studio and the vision, but also Fableborne on our games going forward.
And maybe back in 2021, you question like, hey, are we doing this the right way? Like, look at all these people raising millions of dollars. Like, maybe we should do it ourselves. But now with hindsight being 2020, you're able to see like, hey, maybe it was the right decision to really wait, because now you guys were not only able to raise $7.8 million to really accelerate the development, but a lot of the games, unfortunately, that did launch those tokens, that did launch those NFTs back in 2021, when all they had was a pitch deck and a white paper and a dream, their tokens are a lot lower from where they were at one point. And now they have to sort of battle not only building the game that they wanted to build and promise to their investors, but now they have to make people believe again in a token that's down 99% from their all-time high. So I think now we're looking back at it a couple of years with sort of that experience in mind. Yes, this was the right way. And maybe you guys are now showing the next generation of people that are going to be entering the space, maybe don't launch a token, maybe don't launch an NFT right away. Really build something good first, and then people will come around because they will see what you guys are building. And with that idea in mind of the money that you guys raised last year, the 7.8 million to accelerate game development, how is that able to help you guys? How much faster is the game development being able to happen now that you guys have that extra funding sort of with you guys now?
Yeah, I mean, one of the consequences is, we were able to bring on incredible talent like Maria. And so, that just exponentially moves us forward and brings in more knowledge, smart minds that again just give us an unfair advantage. And so the focus for us was, ruthless precision on our priorities, and focus really long term. And the market then caught up. Everyone was living this incredible pipe dream, and it was a great founders, a great time for a founder that was raising. But the fundamentals weren't there. We weren't looking at businesses. We were looking at these Ponzi schemes, and unfortunately, that created this huge suction of capital that was flowing into teams that were promising things that they could not deliver on, but also bad actors on the investment side, where investors didn't care, because once those token and that unlock schedule elapsed and those vesting schedules had elapsed, they were just using the team, the hype, and the shill that the team had created to then just dump on retail and their own portfolio companies. I've spoken to founders where once that token unlocked, those investors just dumped everything. And, they came out with a 10x because they came in at a private round, or it was a token warrant where it was a nominal fee. And it's a learning, because it's not only, I don't want to say it's the naivety of founders, but when someone is giving you $10 million to build your dream, it's easy to say yes. And so I think, the market's matured, the founders have matured, investors have been burnt, and those that stuck it out now over the bear, you start to understand, okay, who are the ones that are really here, that really believe in the space, and that just pushes up the quality in every direction.
We're the survivors, and you're the survivors. And I think that's, again, like before we even went live, I said that's part of why we said, okay, like it's time to start having conversations about games that are actually going to be rad and fun to play and deserve to sit at the table, that deserve to push gaming forward.
I love the podcast. As the founder of NVIDIA, Jensen. He was on the podcast Acquired, and I loved how he was talking about the strategic positioning of NVIDIA. And he was describing, do you want to be chasing what other people, like what other companies are doing? Like you go exactly to where they are, you're chasing them. Or do you want to work towards your thesis and be positioned for taking that market when the opportunity presents itself? You're going to be the closest to it, and you're going to just pick it up, and it's going to be yours, and you're going to get that unfair lead against your competition. And that's how I see the current market of blockchain gaming. Like no one has the right answers right now. And if you're spending your time trying to chase what other projects are doing, like you're behind, because you're not positioning yourself for like the playbook for when it is discovered what is like the true essence and value that blockchain can create. And so we have our design space thesis that we are working towards. It's being built from the core of the game, from our economy, the resources, the progression, the social play, the live ops, the competitive play. And so we're not going to have just like a plastered on cosmetics economy. We're not going to have just a plastered on token. It's built from the start in chasing these theses that we hypothesize as part of the new value that blockchain gaming can bring. And so at Crypto Twitter, I describe it as a whirlpool. And it's so fun. Like people are awesome, and it's like you're constantly making friends. It's the best social space as well. And it's so engaging. And so like I open Twitter or I'm in Wolf's DAO, and I'm just like, I could spend a whole day just talking to people and learning what they're doing. And so I feel like I have to close off sometimes, and I have to be very focused and not get lost in the whirlpool, because it will, like the coolness and the vibes will just also pull you into that direction. And so I think building in that space, you have to have a very proactive effort in protecting your focus, or else you might not even notice it, but you're now chasing and not leading.
That, like when I first started hearing about Web3 gaming and blockchain gaming and crypto gaming and play to earn and whatever, the term has changed a million times. But this idea of gaming that is in this ecosystem, the reason why I got excited wasn't, hey, I could make $10 playing Call of Duty. It was like, because we're going to see new things that haven't been done before. I'm not dunking on anyone specific, but as a gamer, like I'm a little bit tired of seeing like the same game released 10 times in a row. I want something fresh that I can actually have fun with, and I can get excited again, and I can create new memories, and I can be, just genuinely excited to play. And so I think that's why I'm so excited. And I'm curious, just to wrap things up. I know you got a kid to put to sleep in just a minute. Right now, if someone is listening with where you guys are at in your development cycle, where where are you at in as far as like community getting involved? Is there an alpha or beta that they can participate in? Is there something that maybe they want to get excited about? Is it jumping in and connecting in the socials? Is it playing things? Is it maybe getting excited about some NFTs? Like where in the cycle of like engaging the people that are listening right now are you guys?
So where are we with the roadmap and what's to come for Fableborne in 24? So the big North Star goal for us is soft launch for Fableborne. That means 45 plus days worth of content before we really start pouring fuel onto a fire. We want enough content so even the most avid player, before they get to the end of that content treadmill, we can always be in front. We can always introduce new heroes, new base units, new live op tournament events, whatever it may be. They never get to the end of that road and feel, well, the experience is stagnating for me. So soft launch is the biggest North Star goal for us. We've got a lot of really cool things in between that we're going to sprinkle around. We've talked about, and I think actually while we've been on the podcast, I've seen pings about messages going out about an airdrop that's happening for Primordial Essence. Primordial Essence is our off-chain currency. That's going to allow you to buy some really incredible on-chain items. More of that to come in the coming weeks. There's definitely a new playable. The team have been working really hard over the last 2 months and over holidays to build out this new game mode. And I don't know if it's a good or bad thing, but I find this new game mode actually better than the core loop of Fableborne. And so it gives me a lot of confidence that, we found this new live ops game mode that's just as exciting and just as compelling as the core
So
loop
that's a
that we
win.
built
I mean,
with
I referenced
Fableborne.
Fortnite earlier, right? That's what they did. They were like the survival mode or whatever, and then they were like, here's a added on game mode, and then it became everyone's favorite, and it was a win. So
Yeah,
people having
yeah,
fun, it's a
it's
win.
so excited to get that out. It's not going to be too long. To jump in, we've got an incredible community and social media manager, Tyler, really passionate about gaming, really passionate about Web3. He's been in it for years, a believer in what the technology can do for players and the industry as a whole. So jump in, we're active, Marie and I, in the space. Come ask us questions. We released 8 builds last year, and so we're always listening to the community. We don't always action everything the community says, but we're always listening. And if there's something there of value that we think aligns with what we're trying to build in Fableborne, more often than not, it's actually added into the next build. And so come in, join into the conversation, help us build this new thesis, this new playbook, and hopefully you'll enjoy the game.
Which I love.
If
Go ahead.
Matthew and I want to play, or like someone listening to this wants to go ahead and start playing or trying it out, is there a way for them to actually participate? Is there an alpha that they can sign up for, or how would they go about it?
Yeah, so sign up on our website, fableborne.com. That will be the first ticket to sign up with a Pixion ID. If you do want to get involved in our ecosystem, we launched our first collection, the Primordials, in October. I know the space is all about value accrual. Where are we now? 8, 9x in 3 months, and degen mode hasn't been turned on yet. So there's a lot
Yeah.
of really exciting things planned for the Primordials. In terms of playtests, make sure you're signed up. You'll be the first ones to know when the next build goes live.
Beautiful. Well said. And you can find all of that wherever you're listening. There will be a link down here. And you can find all of that somewhere down here. I love it, Cam. I respect a lot what you said about like, hey, we're listening to the community and actually implementing a lot of that. I think that is the beauty of Web3 is that there is so much more community involved. It's not just players. They're like, you actually get to be a part of the process of creating something awesome. And I'm a big fan of that. I dig that. Thank you, Cam, Maria. This has been awesome. I really can't wait to see what you guys pull off. I think people like you that have built behind the scenes and not just launching a token right away, and putting in the work and learning the lessons early. it is going to make Web3 gaming so much more exciting to be a part of, to play in, to talk about, to just watch develop. It is a lot more fun talking to people like you guys than it is in 2021 when we were like fantasizing about games maybe existing at some point. So thank you for sitting down with us. This has been a blast.
Thanks for having us, guys.
Yeah, thank you.
And we'll
Much
see all
love.
you guys in the Shatterlands.
Shatterlands. If you're listening, find us in the Shatterlands. You can find the links down here. Thanks. Much love.